pandemic, which many economies have been grappling with. And just as the world was gradually coming out of it in 2021, Q4 2021 to Q1 2022, there's been a second salvo of an outbreak of war in parts of Europe. These two events are creating a lot of uncertainty in the global economy. Indeed, if you are following global events, which I'm sure you are doing, yesterday the Chancellor of the Exchequer in the United Kingdom had to speak to the British people, outlining the measures that the British government is embarking upon with the objective of cushioning the public against the difficulties that the twin crises are causing the world over and in the United Kingdom. Here in Ghana, even before that, you heard us mention that the President, as part of the regular quarterly cabinet retreats, had spent a lot of time on the economy and had tasked his ministers to do some work on various parts of it. And we had mentioned earlier that the minister responsible for finance will later this week, and that's actually today, have the opportunity to speak to the nation about the measures that government will be rolling out upon the president's instructions. There was a need to do some stakeholder engagement between the cabinet retreat and now. It is my understanding that some of that, a good chunk of that has been completed, but there's still some work to be done. But the minister is in a position to speak to the nation and outline the raft of measures that the administration will be rolling out in helping to cushion Ghanaians against the economic hardships that the world is going through. So the context within which we're having this conversation is how the Akufo-Addo administration is seeking to cushion Ghanaians in the face of global economic difficulties. I want to, at this stage, invite to the podium the Honourable Minister responsible for Finance, the Honourable Ken Ofori-Atta, to deliver his remarks. After that, we'll take your questions and he will provide some responses. Minister, we're in your hands.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Kojo. It's good to be here. I think I was with you all in January, and we had a good session there. But good afternoon. Good afternoon indeed, ladies and gentlemen of the press and fellow citizens. Thank you for availing yourselves this afternoon to this important intervention press conference from here. I'm here today to announce to you measures to address the economic difficulties we are facing due mainly to recent global and domestic events. These difficulties have manifested in rising fuel prices, rising inflation and cost of living, exchange rate depreciation, rising interest rates, and revenue mobilization challenges. Government had its first regular quarterly retreat for 2022 from 18th to 20th March at Pejuase, concluding in Accra on Monday, the 21st of March. During the retreat, Cabinet deliberated extensively on a number of issues and approved a number of measures to support current efforts to address the challenges we are facing. Also on Monday, March 21st, 2022, the Bank of Ghana announced a number of complementary monetary measures to address the rising costs of goods and services on the market and the worrying performance of the cedi against major currencies. Ladies and gentlemen, it's important to stress right from the onset that the difficulties we are facing in Ghana are not peculiar to Ghana. It should also be stressed that several governments in both developed and developing countries are busily coming out with various prescriptions to bring the economy to work and on track. After the devastating impact of COVID-19, which distorted global supply chains and the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war. If we look at the world today, there are two clear forces shaping global events: the impact of the novel coronavirus pandemic and the crisis in Ukraine. With the virus, the records show that our decision to focus first on protecting lives and then livelihoods has paid off. By February, globally, some 7.03% of those infected by COVID-19 had died. For Africa, the figure was 4.03%, about 251,444 people. In comparison, less than 0.89%, that is 1,445 people of infected people died. May their souls rest in peace. Against all odds, but due to firm leadership, bold initiative, and responsive citizens, Ghana has so far collectively managed the virus remarkably well. But we knew that Ghana, like most countries in the world, had a tall list of coronavirus-induced bills to pay from 2020 and 2021, and came out of plans and policies to boost investor confidence and job prospects for 2022 and beyond. As you recall, we lost 13.1 billion of revenue and had to increase our expenditure by 14.2 billion, with combined fiscal impact of 26 billion Ghana cedis, about 6.8% of GDP in just 1 year. For government, 2022 was now the time to go full steam ahead in healing the economy to create jobs, especially for our young generation. This was evidenced by our growth figures, averaging 5.2% in 2021, up from 0.4% in 2020, and a startling 6.6% growth in the third quarter of 2021. We outline our comprehensive recovery program, the 100 billion CD Ghana Cares Obatampa program, to focus on the rail sector to do just that. Our 10 billion Ghana Youth Start program will be the most historic intervention for youth employment in our country. However, three things that we did not and could not predict hit us. That, one, that Parliament will approve government's 2022 budget statement, the appropriation and its expenditure plans, and then turn around to vote against one of the key revenue generation measures that was being introduced, the e-levy. That the unyielding stance of the minority in Parliament against the e-levy would gravely affect investor confidence in our capacity to implement our programs and settle our debts, triggering a downgrading by credit rating agencies, and now leaving the cedi vulnerable as we could not access the international capital markets. Ladies and gentlemen, the third hit was the launch of the attack on Ukraine by Russia on February 24, 2022. The war in Ukraine could not have come at a worse time for the global economy. Already, global efforts towards economic recovery from the devastation wreaked by the coronavirus pandemic were being disturbed by supply chain disruptions, surging inflation, and uncertainties in the financial markets with anticipated hikes in interest rates. After February 24, we saw a sharp hike in global oil prices, food prices shocks, especially wheat, oil and gas price hikes, capital risks, aversion, flight to safety, affecting private capital flows to emerging markets as a whole, and all with serious macroeconomic implications. For example, crude oil prices per barrel increased by 75.3% from $74.17 in December 2021, when the 2022 budget was passed, to $130 on 7th March 2022, before moderating to $115 as of today. Crude oil prices crossed the $100 mark for the first time since September 2014. We recall that prior to the pandemic, we had built resilience through the implementation of bold and prudent economic measures. By April 2019, we had successfully, as a country, completed the 4-year IMF program. We did so and more by achieving an annual average real growth, GDP growth of 7% between 2017 and 2019 from 3.4% in 2016, maintaining a fiscal deficit below 5% of GDP for 3 consecutive years, maintaining a positive primary balance for 3 consecutive years, which put our debt on a sustainable path, lowering lending rates by over 10 percentage points, restructuring the banking sector to protect the savings of 4.6 million depositors, and strengthening the financial sector. So far, government has spent over 25 billion since 2018 to clean up the financial sector, reducing inflation from 15.4% in December 2016 to 7.6% in 2019, and preserving the integrity of the local industry. Improving gross international reserves to reach 8.6 billion, or about 4 months of import cover by 2020. Introducing the most ambitious social welfare policy ever seen in our country, the free SHS program. Constructing and rehabilitating more roads, cumulative of about 6,250 kilometers, completing 6 of 11 interchanges and flyovers, more than any other government in our history. Employ more new teachers, nurses, doctors, agri extension officers, and young graduates than any government in our history. Saving the entire financial sector from inherited, neglected crisis that has cost government some 25 billion so far. Instigating more value for money audits on public procurements than any government in our history, and investing more resources in the police, military, governance, and anti-corruption institutions than ever before. It is this proven record of fixing what is broken that gave the MPP government the confidence to tackle head-on the devastation unleashed by COVID-19. And it is the same can-do and will-do attitude that gives us hope that we will overcome the current crisis. We are not a people to bow to the spirit of despondency and despair. As well as threatening global peace, the war in Ukraine has had far-reaching impact. We do not know how long the conflict will last, but it is clear that it has already forced many countries in Europe and beyond to adjust their economic plans for 2022, and Africa is likely to be amongst the worst hit outside of Ukraine. UNTAC's rapid assessment of the war's impact on trade and development shows a worsening outlook for the world economy, with the situation especially alarming for African countries. The Russia-Ukraine war has also compounded the global supply chain and trade disruptions brought about by COVID-19 pandemic, as well as adversely impacted the dreaded 3 Fs: food security, fuel price escalation, and financing conditions. That's impacting living conditions with the capacity to derail global recovery efforts in 2022 and beyond. Global inflation trending upwards has led to central banks raising interest rates globally, resulting in tight financing conditions and reversal of capital inflows, especially to emerging markets. For example, the U.S. Federal Reserve Bank announced a hike in interest rates by 0.25 percentage points on 16 March and has signaled more such to follow. Similarly, the Bank of England has raised its policy rate by another 25 basis points to 0.75% on 17 March 2022. We've seen the highest inflation in US, UK, Germany, and other advanced countries since 1974. The US's inflation increased by 6.5 percentage points from 1.4% in January 2022 to 7.9% in February 2022. Similarly, inflation in Germany increased by 4.1 percentage points from 1% in January 2022 to 5.1% in February 2022. Since the COVID-19 pandemic struck, more than 60% of African sovereigns have suffered downgrades across the region. Ghana witnessed a downgrade from Fitch on 21st January 2022 to B- with a negative outlook, while Moody's downgraded Ghana to Caa1 with a stable outlook on 4 February 2022, even though S&P affirmed Ghana's rating at B- with a stable outlook on 7 February 2022. These downgrades have had implications for market access, exchange rate depreciation, capital flight, and increased cost of financing. Ladies and gentlemen, on the domestic front, the challenges include the impasse in Parliament, which is adversely affecting government business, such as the passage of some revenue bills, including the e-levy bill. This is creating uncertainty, which has been highlighted as a key risk by the rating agencies and affected our credit spreads, limiting our access to the international capital markets. The adverse global developments are impacting severely on exchange rate depreciation and domestic inflation as investors take refuge in safer assets by stocking up on the dollar, which is considered the safest currency to hold. The CD has not been spared. Cumulatively, our local currency has depreciated by 15.6% against the US dollar and 13.4% and 13.3% respectively against the pound sterling and euro in the year to 23rd March 2022. This understandably is causing a lot of anxiety among our traders and consumers alike. However, we also need to recognize that in spite of it all, the CD has held under these extreme challenges better than it did between 2014 and 2015. This is because the fundamentals are much stronger. The Bank of Ghana has announced measures to address the exchange rate depreciation, and we believe in the propriety of the measures they outlined on Monday. The rise in international price of crude oil and the exchange rate depreciation are affecting the ex-pump prices of fuel domestically as it feeds into high transportation fares and hence inflation. For example, the average ex-pump price of diesel for 3 OMCs, Goil, Total, and Vivo increased by 59.7% from 6.7 cedis per liter on 1st January 2022 to 10.7 cedis per liter by the 21st of March 2022. Ghana is not alone here. From Angola and Malawi through Nigeria and Rwanda to Senegal down to Zimbabwe, fuel prices are soaring. Some neighboring countries are not only dealing with rising petrol prices, but also scarcity on petroleum products, leading to long queues at filling stations. It remains the case, however, that one of the biggest drivers of price increases in goods and services in Ghana is the fuel price hike. Inflation has surged to 15.7% at the end of February 2022. Food inflation increased from 12.8% in December 2021 to 17.4% in February 2022, while non-food inflation rose from 12.5% to 14.5% over the same period. Ladies and gentlemen, provisional data on the stock of debt as at the end of December 2021 show that the stock of public debt increased to 351.8 billion, 80.1% of GDP, compared with 218.2 billion, 61.2% of GDP at the end of 2022 before the pandemic. Of the total debt stock, domestic debt was 181.8 billion, 51.7%, while the external debt was 170 billion, 48.3%. Ladies and gentlemen, the global and domestic developments I've outlined above are affecting the effective implementation of the budget. Urgent and decisive actions are therefore required to address the challenges and ensure the achievements of the objectives and targets of the 2022 budget, including unleashing the entrepreneurial verve of the Ghanaian youth. Whilst we are in the process of revising the 2022 fiscal framework to reflect current developments with a view to go to Parliament to seek approval for the revisions during the mid-year review in July, government will pursue additional measures to ensure the achievement of the fiscal deficit target of 7.4% of GDP. Ladies and gentlemen, government had already started the new year with spending cuts as Parliament failed to approve key revenue streams at the appropriate time. In January 2022, government announced and immediately began implementing a 20% expenditure cut as part of fiscal stabilization and debt sustainability measures. has been done through the quarterly expenditure ceiling allotment to MDAs. Quarter 1 allotment is currently in implementation, whilst Quarter 2 allotment will be issued shortly. The Ministry has strengthened its expenditure monitoring systems and processes to ensure effective implementation of these measures. In addition, government has decided to take the following measures to ensure the achievement of the fiscal deficit target of 7.4% of GDP for 2022. So, expenditure cutting measures. Discretionary spending is to be further cut by an additional 10%. The Ministry of Finance is currently meeting to review their spending plans for the rest of the 3 quarters to achieve the discretionary expenditure cuts. 2, these times call for very efficient use of energy resources. In line with this, there will be a 50% cut in fuel coupon allocations for all political appointees and heads of government institutions, including SOEs, effective 1st February 2022. With immediate effect, government has imposed a complete moratorium on the purchase of imported vehicles for the rest of the year. This will affect all new orders, especially four-wheel drives. We will ensure that the overall effect is to reduce total vehicle purchases by the public sector by at least 50% for the period. Again, with immediate effect, government has imposed a moratorium on all foreign travels except pre-approved critical statutory travels. 5, government will conclude ongoing measures to eliminate ghost workers from the government payroll by end December 2022. Government will conclude the renegotiations of the energy sector IPP's capacity charges by end of quarter 3 2022 to further reduce excess capacity payments by 20% to generate a total savings of 1.5 billion Ghana cedis. We will impose a moratorium on establishment of new public sector institutions by end of April 2022, prioritize ongoing public projects over new projects. This is to enhance the efficient use of limited public funds over the period by finishing ongoing or stalled but approved projects. Reduce expenditure on all meetings and conferences by 50% effective immediately. Pursue a comprehensive reprofiling strategies to reduce the interest expense burden on the fiscal. Liaise with organized labor and employers association to implement with immediate effect the measures captured in the Kwao Declaration of the 2022 National Labour Conference, including reforms towards addressing salary inequities, inequalities, example Article 71, office holders. The weak link between pay to productivity and sustainability of the payroll. Let me say this. President Akufo-Addo has absolutely no intention to roll back on any major policy like the free SHS. We see education as the best enabler for sustainable economic growth and transformation and social mobility, and will do more to improve on it for it to serve more and better our children. Ladies and gentlemen, in addition, and finally, government approved the ministers and SOEs to contribute to cut 30% of their salaries from April to December 2022 to the Consolidated Fund. We would like to thank the Council of State in their leadership in complementing the government policy on this. All of these measures, ladies and gentlemen, are aimed at ensuring that we achieve the fuel price mitigation measures. Ladies and gentlemen, the rising prices of fuel at the pumps is influenced largely by the rising crude oil price on the international market and the exchange rate depreciation. Though the rising crude oil prices should have been to our benefit on net basis, Ghana's import of petroleum products amounts to 5.2 times the value of proceeds from its crude oil exports. In 2021, for example, we exported $3.947 billion of crude, of which Ghana's portion was $513 million. However, we imported $2.0 $719 of crude and finished products. So the purported windfall gain in foreign exchange is quite a mirage. From January to date, the average export price of diesel and petrol have increased by 57% and 45% respectively. Unlike in other countries where the hike in crude oil prices and exchange rate volatility are leading to shortages in supply of petroleum products, government is implementing measures to guarantee constant supply of petroleum products. To mitigate the impact of the rising price of petroleum products at the pump for the next 3 months, government has decided to reduce margins in petroleum price build-up by a total of 15 pesos per litre with effect from 1st April. The details are as follows. Bus margin reduced by 2 pesos per litre, Unified Petroleum Pricing Fund margin reduced by 9 pesos per litre, fuel marking margin reduced by 1 peso per litre, primary distribution margin reduced by 3 pesos per litre. Ladies and gentlemen, these reductions in margins are expected to reduce prices of petrol by 1.6% and diesel by 1.4%. We anticipate that the measures taken to strengthen the currency will help further stabilize the prices at the pump. Ladies and gentlemen, in addition, the NPA and the Ministry of Energy are in discussions with the OMCs to reduce their margins within the spirit of burden sharing. The government will do all it can to ensure consistent supply of fuel and manage the rate of export price increase by ensuring that the Bank of Ghana has access to adequate foreign exchange to support this. Revenue measures. Ladies and gentlemen, cutting down on expenditures alone will not be enough. Our focus is therefore twofold: to control expenditure and to raise more revenue domestically. As such, we will therefore begin the implementation and collection of the revised property rate by end of April 2022. We will implement the EVAT e-cabal. Government will partner the private sector to also introduce digital systems to monitor quarrying, sand winning, and salt winning to get more revenue from our natural resources, and immediately enforce the no duty, no exit policy at the MPS terminal at the Tema port to improve revenue collection. Ladies and gentlemen, Government of Ghana is to conclude external financing arrangement of up to $2 billion in the next 2 to 6 weeks in line with approved external financing for 2022 and for liability management and to manage the slide. MOF, Ministry of Finance, will also work with the Central Bank to review the foreign exchange retention policy in line with approved external financing for 2022 and for liability management. Additionally, the following measures will be implemented over the medium term: wean off public tertiary institutions from government payroll and provide them with a fixed amount block grant instead. Pursue reforms to address structural challenges in public financial management, including procurement and commitment control, payroll management, and human resource management. It is too early, ladies and gentlemen, to say the COVID-19 pandemic is over, but it is good to acknowledge that Ghana has handled it excellently. We have emerged from its deadliest and most economically damaging phase. We have outlined our economic recovery program, are executed as planned. The Ghanaian economy should return to pre-pandemic levels across most economic indicators by the end of the year. On the other major event driving the global economy, we recognize that the world is 4 weeks into this terrible war, and it is quite clear that both the occupation of Ukraine and the range of sanctions imposed on Russia will have profound effects both in the short and long term for global markets. The longer the conflict goes on, what will be the disruption to the global economy. We shall continue to monitor the situation very closely and make further adjustments if and when needed. We may have no control of the trajectory of the conflict, but it only reminds us how necessary it is for Ghanaians to assert greater control over our own destiny. We can do if we share in the sacrifices before us to strengthen our capacity for greater self-reliance even in this interdependent world. Government remains optimistic that the economy will grow even bigger this year. The challenge now is to marshal this economic growth before us in the right direction and ensure that it benefits Ghanaians across the board. Ladies and gentlemen, we are confident that these measures will address the immediate and short-term challenges confronting our nation. Government remains resolute and committed to entrenching the structural transformation of our economy in the long term. To this end, we are aggressively pursuing key interventions such as 1D, 1F, Ghana Cares, and the Youth Start programs to improve our ability to locally produce more goods and optimize the opportunities AFCFTA offers us. It is important that as a country, we reduce our dependence on imports and increase local production. Public institutions are reminded of government's policy to buy locally produced goods. It is critical that Ghanaians reconsider their preference and consume more locally produced goods to support the economy and guarantee decent jobs for our people. Ladies and gentlemen, your government, the Akufo-Addo administration, is determined to turn things around and has the skills, discipline, and compassion to do so. But to do so, we must not allow our fortunes to be misdirected by speculators and naysayers, those who only thrive when we allow avoidable uncertainties to hold sway in the affairs of the nation. I pray that peace be within the walls of Parliament and sobriety within its towers as we go back to Parliament to introduce our revenue bills. Ladies and gentlemen, these measures outlined today will significantly improve the macro-fiscal situation towards a restoration of confidence and safeguard the achievement of the 2022 budget deficit target of 7.4% of the GDP. These measures have been carefully designed to ensure that growth and spending on social protection are, however, not compromised. Ladies and gentlemen, these are truly challenging times globally. No country has been spared. Government therefore calls on all Ghanaians to stand together. Together we shall surely overcome. Ladies and gentlemen, the people of Ghana, we can do it together. This is not the first time an MPP government working together with the people of Ghana has succeeded in overcoming an economic challenge of this nature. We have demonstrated time and time again our ability to overcome with you. First, in 2001, the MPP government, led by former President Kufuor, together with the people of Ghana, brought the country out of severe economic difficulties. Second, in 2017, the MPP government, led by President Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo, together with the people of Ghana, brought the country out of the economic doldrums in which we were at the end of 2016. This third time still, under President Akufo-Addo, working together with the people of Ghana, will not be an exception. Ladies and gentlemen, I've had the privilege of engaging in a number of town hall meetings from Koforidua to Takoradi, to Tamale, to Wa and Ho, and the resolve of our people to burden share for a better life for all of us is palpable. In particular, they want everyone to pay taxes. They want government to be accessible. They want Parliament to get on with work. They want employment for our youth. They want agriculture and industry to thrive. They want government to cut its coat. They want us to tackle our debt problem and raise more revenue and to prosecute offenders. Ladies and gentlemen, our media review will reveal the successes of what we have done. This would ensure that the structural reforms are crystallized, reduce fiscal dominance during this period, and ensure fiscal and monetary policy coherence. Let me end by a quotation from Jeremiah. Let us seek, all of us, the peace and prosperity of our nation. Let's pray to the Lord for it, because if it prospers, you too will prosper. Together, we'll confront the macroeconomic challenges head-on, stabilize the economy, and set it on the path of economic transformation for all. So yes, we'll bring in additional 1 to 2 billion slide of the currency. We have enumerated a number of issues to ensure expenditure cuts, and we have put in place strategies to ensure that we have the supply of fuel that is required and maintain and stabilize the increases. But let us also remember that this is a global phenomenon in which we are part of, but we can and we will overcome. God bless our whole Ghana. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. And as Honorable Minister resumes his seat, it's a good time to get ready to take your questions. Can I get an indication where the microphone is? Can I get an indication where the microphone is? Aha, thank you. So it's a good time to take your questions. There are a number of things the Minister has spoken to, dealing with the fiscal threats, revenue side, and then expenditure side, in particular the expenditure cuts. I could see a lot of people smirking and smiling when you were announcing the expenditure cuts, Honorable Minister. Dealing with the exchange rate depreciation, rising inflation and cost of fuel, as well as the fuel prices issue and the cuts that are expected to translate into results for the good people of Ghana. The Honorable Minister also provided a context within which all of this is happening. There's a global context, and then there's a local context, and what government is doing is to work towards mitigating its impact on the local context. So if I can take the first 4 questions, then I will come for responses and come for another 4. Please try and keep your questions to not more than 2 so that we can hear from as many people as possible. So where's the microphone? Okay, right here. So I'll start with Shinwa.
Yes.
Is that Shinwa?
Yes, Shinwa.
That's GNA.
Thank you very much.
Hold on. Madam, where are you from? Oh, TV3, that's you. And then, let's start from here. Yeah, Shinwa.
Yes, thank you very much, Honorable Minister. The prognosticators predicted you were going to quote from Isaiah, but I realized you jumped a step further into Jeremiah. Kudos. Please, may I know how much the government seeks to save from the expenditure cuts in all for this year? And secondly, did we lose the opportunity to hedge or to take some pricing insurance for petroleum prices on the world market when indications were that prices were beginning to move up somewhere last year? And then also, could we not have taken some local bonds to do, I know subsidy doesn't sound familiar, palatable these days, but do some price subsidies for the energy sector across the board? Thank you.
In addition to the subsidies that already exist?
Yes, sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
So that's one. Yes, there was GNA in front chair. So what is the fiscal impact of the expenditure cuts that we're looking at? Second question is, did we lose the opportunity to hedge at a time when there was indication that fuel prices could be going higher? And is there room to introduce some subsidies in addition to what exists already in the energy space? I got your questions right. Okay, GNA.
Thank you. My name is Ataminsa from GNA. I want to find out whether government has any plans of increasing domestic refinery of petroleum product so that we insulate domestic fuel prices from the vagaries of the exchange rate. Then 2, has government any plans of introducing contingency fund so that the country can fall on in terms of global economic difficulties?
In addition to the ones that exist already?
Yes.
So do we plan to have extra contingency funds? Because there's already contingency in our framework. But in addition to that, we plan to have extras. Okay, extra contingency funds. Thank you. TV3? Yes.
Good afternoon. Nanikia Mensah Brampa with TV33 FM. So I think my first question was asked by Shingwa regarding the value, how much government hopes to save from these measures that have been outlined by the finance minister. And secondly, government, we know, is the biggest spender when we look at the economy. Won't the expenditure cut affect money within the system? That's what we want to find out. Thank you.
Thank you. And if I have permission to add to your question, not just money, but economic activity. So won't expenditure cuts affect money in circulation and economic activity and the prospects of growth? Thank you very much, Anna Kwegu.
Right. My name is Kweku Asante, Joy News and Joy FM. Is there any budget committee or a specialized agency to ensure compliance to these new directives, especially on cuts to meeting expenditures, the travels, and to ensure that all SOEs comply? And then in terms of the salary cuts, the specifics, is this only affecting political office holders, or it extends to the public sector, which we all know about how bloated or how big it is? Thank you.
Thank you, Kweku. So who will assure compliance with these measures? And do the salary cuts go beyond political appointees? Does it affect civil servants? There are civil servants who do not be happy with the question that you're asking. Does it affect civil servants? Honorable Minister, we are in your hands for some responses. Can you get the responses if we don't use that microphone, or you need that microphone to get the responses? Minister, I beg of you, we'll need it because the station mics are on that side. I beg of you, we'll need to use that podium to respond so that all the mics can pick it. So while Minister is moving there, let me just go over the questions. What is the fiscal impact of the expenditure cuts? Did we lose the opportunity to hedge when there was indication that prices were going to go up? And is there room to introduce some subsidies on energy prices? There's a second question from GNA. Can we look at deepening domestic refining of petroleum products? In terms of sources, we have local sources that could translate into some cheaper products for us. And in addition to the already existent contingency funds in Ghana's budget, do we think we need to increase our contingency funding here in Ghana's budgets? There's another question. Won't the cuts affect money in circulation? And I added to it economic activity and the prospects of growth, with Naneku's permission. And then the final question, who will assure compliance to these measures? And does it affect civil servants as well? Minister.
Thank you very much indeed, and thanks for the questions. Yes, we do have a committee, at the ministry to follow through on these cuts that we have talked about. And I think I might have even mentioned it in the speech. So yes, we do. The cuts, just to allay the fears of the 700,000 civil servants and public servants, has to do with political appointees, including SOEs, etc. Because it's really an issue of setting the example, and I think it's important, especially given the lack of control we'll have international crude oil pricing, that even as we make these bold moves, I think corporates individually in the country should also begin to look at their usage of petrol in a way in which you recognize that this problem is a problem for the Republic and it's international. And I think that's important. And so we really commend the Council of State when they also joined us to cut down their salaries by 20% going forward. But I think for most corporates and Ghanaians, now being more austere about how we use petroleum products, it's going to be important for all of us as a nation. As I mentioned, we are a net importer of petrol, of fuel, and it's almost like a 1 to 5.2 ratio, so that the increase in petrol affects us, in crude prices affects us, more than what we gain. Opportunity that we had with regards to the potential to hedge, those are constantly being done to try and get a break-even point, and we have not succeeded in pricing it appropriately. But that is constantly being worked on. In terms of subsidies, I think that's always an important question. But if you look at, let's say, for example, the special petroleum tax levy, we expected to gain about 3 billion cedis for the year. And when you are running a budget deficit and you begin to think of more subsidies, that will be the cost to you as a nation as you do that. So we have to be very prudent about what we do about extra subsidies. Domestic refining capacity, I know that the Ministry of Energy and TOR are working on various plans to see how we can build a new refinery, either private sector or PPP, etc. So that certainly is an appropriate idea to be shared. With regards to savings, in terms of initial calculations of all of that, will be about 3.5 billion Ghana cedis that we expect to be able to save. But we'll keep titrating and tightening it and ensure that we get as much from that as possible. The contingency funds that was mentioned, good idea, but you really need, we already have our heritage funds, etc. And at this juncture, with the crisis, there's very little to add on to. But certainly, we're always looking for ways in which you can build stock for the future. And so that would be done. I don't know, Kojo, is that...
Yes, Minister. I have a sense that the key issues have been tackled. We'll take a second round of questions. Yes, I think there was... yes, there was only one that is yet to be responded to. One, that cuts affect money in circulation and economic activity and the prospect of growth.
Well, the question that I guess we have to ask ourselves as a nation, and therefore whether the cost of runaway inflation, what we are experiencing with our currency, and what that will trigger into. And so when you look at Bank of Ghana's measures, it's really to contain inflation and not sort of chase up the depreciation of the currency. But there are times in any nation's life in which these decisions have to be made. Difficult times, but if we don't do that, we'll spiral into an arena that we really do not want. So yes, it will bring some tightening, but when you don't have resources and the markets or the global market moves against you, we then have to readjust the way in which we spend things, and within that that band of resources we should be able to do. Note that even last year, from a 0.4% growth in 2020, in 2021 we were able to grow by an average of 5.2%, and the third quarter, as I mentioned, at 6.6%. So we need to be very deliberate in how we support, the areas in the real sector that would generate the growth and cut down on overheads in governments. Thank you.
Minister, grateful. We're going to take a second batch of questions. We will be biased towards the ladies as we start. Yes, madam. Yes, madam. And then I'll go to the two gentlemen at the back. That will make 4 for this round. There are 2 gentlemen yourself. I'll give you priority in the next round. So, madam, let's start with you. Not more than 2 questions so that we can hear from more people.
My name is Agnes and I report for the Chronicle newspaper. And Minister, you spoke of returning to Parliament with regards to the e-levy. No assurance you have that it will be passed this time around. Thank you.
Thank you. Blessed assurance.
My name is Natalie Netty from City TV. Minister, please, we want to know how much was spent on fuel coupons in a year so that we can appreciate the 50% reduction that the government is proposing. And also, how much is the government expected to save from all these cuts and measures put in place to require the
Okay, thank you. Natalie, I think the second one was answered already in the first round of questions. But Minister, the question is, can you disaggregate, for example, fuel and other things here and now for us? If you can, we'll be happy to. Yes, sir.
Yes, Christian. Would like to find
Christian,
out
from which media house?
GNA and Reuters.
Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, the details, we want the minister to share big details on the 2 billion series. $2 billion, where is it coming from? You just saying external. And how would that help prop up the city?
Okay. Say again? Okay, so then I'll come to you. Yes, sir.
Right, my name is Emmanuel Abuaji from Associate Radio. And my first question is, with a 15% 15 peso margin off the price built up, is this going to be reintroduced after the 3 months that you mentioned? And have we not taken into consideration the debate that some of the margins have outlived their usefulness and therefore should have been factored into this particular calculation? Now, my second question is the fact that we are going to cut purchase of cars. Now, government is considered a substantial purchaser of vehicles in our country. So how is this going to improve upon our infant automobile industry? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very interesting question. Yes, sir. Is that Daily Graphic?
Ghanaian Times.
Ghanaian Times, okay.
Cliff Ekufu. So mine is a follow-up. I would want to find out if the additional 2 billion that we intend to bring in is not going to worsen our already precarious debt portfolio. Yeah.
Then, sir, let me give you a take so that we wrap up.
Yes, Honourable Minister, thank you very much. My name is Akuo Kokwati, representing Kesbe Media. Minister did mention cut, and I know I know this is interim measures to save the economy.
Yeah.
Because of the problem. And when he was responding to some of the questions from my colleagues, he said the cut is going to affect only the government.
Salary cuts.
Okay, the salary cuts, yes. And I know we have the people's appointees, though, who are the representative of the people. I'm talking about Parliament.
Yeah.
Do we have any plans to also, maybe in a way of speaking to them, to also cut certain percentage from their salaries, because they are 275 and any percentage cut can also contribute to the problem that we want to solve?
Thank you. You have a follow-up on this one very quickly, very quickly.
So, Minister, talking about the expenditure cuts and debt situation, the Auditor General's report actually indicated that certain public officials have misappropriated certain finances related to them. Are there any plans to pursue, the collection of such funds to actually support our fiscal management? Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go over them, but I think there are a few I got to do. You watch the public account hearings live on television at every point in time. When the Auditor General has made a finding, a preliminary finding that he's of the view that some infraction has taken place, the audit committee of the organization has the opportunity to correct it even before we go to Parliament. And so Parliament is a platform for reporting. If it's been corrected, it's reported. If it's not being corrected, the Parliamentary Accounts Committee gives the instructions on what needs to be done at that point in time. And then still stay with Parliament on the question of the emoluments and other things of members of parliament. You know, there's a process for determining emoluments of the executive and then of the legislature. And you also know that you may not necessarily be able to vary it to people's disadvantage. It becomes a question for the legislature to voluntarily examine. Now that the Council of State has a cut, is done it voluntarily, it becomes a matter for the legislature to look at. And I do believe that there are several members of parliament who are interested in having that conversation in parliament. So we'll leave minister and the executive out of that one. Agnes wants to know, Minister, whether you have any assurances on e-levy. Netele is asking if you can disaggregate some of the issues that are being cut now and give some nominal figures even here and now. Christian is asking if you have any further information you can share on the 2 billion injection that you mentioned. And then also if the cut to projected purchases of vehicles will not affect our infant automobile industry as government cuts affects the economy throughout. So, Minister, let me invite you to provide responses. Are there further questions so that I know whether we'll wrap up after this one or not? Okay, so I'll come back for a final round. We're in your hands.
Yes, thank you very much indeed, Kojo. Thanks for this. I think the issue, the question was what, returning to Parliament for e-levy. It's already there, you know, so we're just going to go and continue with the discussion and God willing, you know, get it passed. I mean, it is in the parliamentary system. So I pray, I mean, Parliament rises on April 4th or 5th, maybe. And so we've got some critical, maybe 14 or 15 days to make it happen. And I think after these town hall meetings and understanding what the Ghanaian people want, we should be able to do that. I think somebody talked about fuel coupons. It's north of 60 million Ghana cedis. You raised the question about the $2 billion and what its impact will be on our debt to GDP ratio. You know, we typically go to the market during this first quarter period, but because of the exigencies of what happened, markets were closed to us. But you always do measure the potential dislocation in your economy with that. And therefore, the reasons of mentioning the growth numbers last year is to indicate to us our capacity to enhance growth and therefore use the productivity index to be able to pay for it. And I believe that we should be able to, if we continue with the Batampa program, push ahead with the rail sector interventions that we are doing to be able to. But it's too destabilizing, as it were, and affects the living conditions of our people too gravely to leave it behind. And so that, we believe, is a good thing to do. With regards to the executive choosing to cut all of these benefits for them, we clearly do not, you know, control the legislature. That will be their own decision, such as the Council of State their own decision. We hope that we set the example and others will follow. And it's really not about only Parliament, but as I said, let us invoke that spirit among our corporates to look at the expenditures on fuel especially and reduce this 5-to-1 ratio as a net importer of fuel. So we are calling for a spirit of burden sharing, all recognizing that these are difficult moments in the history of the world, and we are not independent of that. But we can, even within this ecosystem, do much better than most, because we always have the capacity within us to do so. With regards to the 15 pesos, which will go through months, and whether the price build-up in petroleum is outmoded or not, I don't think so. I think when you look at a period of growth of a country that is running a budget deficit, it will take some time to be able to do that. In emergency situations, it gives you flexibility and to be able to support that. So we will. In terms of reducing, you have to make choices, and therefore the issue of the new edict on cars, yes, to reduce the number of vehicles coming in. We're very particular about imported vehicles, and then manage what is within the country, but at the same time ensure that maybe there's not a excessive purchase of capital goods, but that will have to be balanced. Kojo, are we good here?
I think so. We're going to go for a final batch. There are those who have not spoken at all. They are those that I'll give priority to. Bloomberg is here. GTV is at the back. George, you let me deal with other people because you've had a say here. So Bloomberg, GTV, you've had a say already, haven't you, sir? You've had a say already. Yeah, but let's hear from other people who haven't spoken. There's a lady here who hasn't spoken. How about you? Which media house are you from, sir?
I'm with Reuters. The question was never answered.
Okay, we'll come back to that one. So let me start from GTV, yeah? GTV, Bloomberg, the lady here. Gentlemen, which media house are you from, sir? Say again? Daily Graphic. Okay, so GTV, Daily Graphic, Bloomberg. Madam, which media house are you from? Home Base. Okay, so let's do these four, and then we will do some follow-ups for those who've already had their say.
Honorable, my first question, I want to know if there is any plan on Tema Oil Refinery. We've seen the setting up of a new management, and we've not had any sort of concrete plan, because that really fits into our quest to refine our products locally and ensure maximum value. Then my second question, Minister, you talked about hoping to grow the economy more than even the target expected, or maybe achieving the 5.8 that we want to achieve for this year. But really, if you look at the inflation hike and the...
I'm sorry, sir, which 5.8 is this?
The growth targets.
Okay.
I mean, so if you look at the policy rate hike and the fact that there is cuts in salaries, that's really going to impact negatively on growth. And I was wondering why Minister is still ambitious, more than even expected. So if there is anything we don't know, Minister can share with us. Thank you.
Minister, there must be something you know that we don't know. Graphic.
Thank you.
Yeah, he's a minister. He will know something we don't know.
Mr. Bonkruma, so yes. I wanted to address what you said about going after people who have sort of misappropriated funds or something captured in the Generation report. The fact is that before the report will go to Public Accounts Committee, it would have taken a year or two. We all know that. We know the report they are sitting on now. And there is a new report, the 2021 report. So there is one person that I have followed on. The Auditor General has charged this person. And this is in the report that has not gone to PAC yet. The person is being sent to court. And the Auditor General is saying that now, beyond the ordinary checks they do, they are subjecting some of these things to forensic examination or whatever they call it, so that they can recoup these monies before these reports even go to PAC for the discussions. So what I'm saying to support my friend is that what is government doing to support the Auditor General to go after these monies and actually recoup it so that I can support us, since we don't have money? Because
so the question is, what is government doing to support the Auditor General?
Yes, and I wanted to address the fact that we don't have to wait for it to go to PAC like you were saying. Thank you.
So So, Minister, the question is, what is government doing to support the Auditor General? That's the question. We'll get your response. This graphic, yeah? Sure. Yeah. Then there's Bloomberg. Please bring the microphone to Bloomberg, yes.
Yeah, thank you very much, Minister. You said you envisage you're going to save 3.5 billion cedis on these cuts. Would you give me a totality of how much savings you envisage from the initial 20% cut? So I have a bulk figure. Now, the Bank of Ghana announced a deficit figure of 9.7 as deficit for 2021, but excluded the legacy debts. What is the unified deficit for 2021 end year? And cocoa revenues too have underperformed this year. How does that add to your pressures of revenue targets? Thank you.
So how does the cocoa performance affect your revenue targets? Yes, madam.
Please, I'm Santoa Julius from Homebase TV. I just want to find out, with the rumors going on that government payroll is full. So even after university, no matter the course that you did, there is no more any governmental job for students. So how true is this? And what's the government doing about it? And with the U-Start program, I don't know, I get people asking me more about this, but I think the education is not really there. How do you get the money? I mean, how do you get to enroll on this policy?
Yeah, it's not even been launched or rolled out.
Okay.
So I'm sure once that takes place, the necessary conversations will come. So we'll stand that down. Minister, there was a follow-up question about the 2 billion. Are you now, as we speak here, in a position to talk about the sources, etc., of that 2 billion? That will be it for this batch, and then I'll do a final float if there are any outstanding follow-ups.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. I mean, the $2 billion that we intend to bring into the system, already we sent out some RFPs. We've gotten responses to those from three international banks, and we will be negotiating the term sheets in the coming week or so. So that's where that is. With regards to Tema Oil Refinery, yes, there's a new management of that. They've been to our offices, given us their plans and their keen interest in looking at a structure to get a new refinery in place. So that is being contended with. You indicated some reservations about where we will get growth from. I think really it's a challenge as to doubting the ingenuity and genius of the Ghanaian. We went through a 0.4% growth in 2020. I'm sure you recall that. And already in 2021, I think we're going to average about 5.2%. And I'll leave you to explain that. If I had said that at the beginning, you wouldn't have believed it. And then in the third quarter, we had 6.6% growth, all quite tight situations. So once again, nor would you have believed if we had said that we're going to get out of the IMF program when we came into government, and all of the things that we were able to do during that period. So it is that same conviction and resolve and belief in what we are capable of doing that we are going into 2022 and the years ahead. I'm confident, therefore, that even with these measures that we have taken to ensure that we live within our means, in there are certain things that we realize. The whole issue of the 2022 budget was, how do we build an entrepreneurial nation? How are we going to consolidate and create jobs? I'm figuring that the U-Start program will trigger some entrepreneurial verb that you and I can calculate the results on. So let's be hopeful, let's be confident about that future. It's always not all about just straight numbers, but the spirit of the people can do a lot more than you can envisage. But I thank you for that question. The issue of misappropriated funds, I think really if you look at the government's allocations to the governance institution, it's historical. What resources we've given to the Auditor General, I think even the previous one, Domevo, even previous of resources and capex that we had given them. So the resources to IOCO, STRAJ, Special Prosecutor, military and police is quite phenomenal. And it is that same sort of resolve that we'll do to ensure that whatever he needs, we'll also do that. It's in our interest, or at least my interest, to fill the public purse. And I'll do everything I can to support, any positive movements in that direction. Let's see.
Effect of cocoa performance on revenue projections.
Yeah. Good question there. I mean, cocoa performance, I think, as you know, we're still going through these imbalances between our pricing and Cote d'Ivoire, and those are things that we really need to manage. Cocoa has invested quite a bit in pruning equipment, in cocoa roads, etc., to open up production in that area, and we're hoping that that will then result in more revenues from them in coming times. I think the issue of the 20% cut, the savings, and then the discussions with Bank of Ghana about the 9.7 billion, all of those things, we are now really synchronizing how we work between the monetary and fiscal to be able to further do that. But I thought usually you come and interview me and all of that. So we'll continue that discussion when yeah. Really, the lady with regards to the U-Start program, we did a pilot in late February, early March, and that is really helping us to kind of complete the design, and expectation is that we launch it nationwide in May. What was there another question that you had? Oh, that was it.
I think this round has been dealt with.
Okay.
So I'm going to go around for a final wrap-up. I think our good friend George Yafe has a quick follow-up. TV3, Chronicle, Nana. Oh, I'm coming. You don't want me to come to that side. So let's start from this place, and let's make it just one each very quickly so that all your colleagues can get an opportunity. So let's start from George. George,
My name is George.
GTV, come forward so that you just take it up to George.
Joy FM. Mr. Minister, do you think that these measures that you've outlined are quite robust enough to bring about the required investor confidence in these things that you've announced? Already the minority is raising some serious concerns about these measures that you've outlined here. And just to even read a tweet from Kessel Atuforsen, who says that, listen, the fiscal measures announced today are just cosmetic and empty. It will further erode confidence in the economy. Government should place a moratorium on new loans, cut in 2022 foreign finance projects at least by 50%, and deliver on promise on reviewing all flagship programs.
So the question is, do you think they are enough?
Enough.
They are robust enough?
Enough to, again, restore that investor confidence that you're talking about, please.
Very well. GTV, very quickly.
Very quickly, I want to know, I think the question...
So what's the question, quickly?
The impact of the money Minister is asking, the $2 billion we are talking about trying to raise on the capital markets, what will be the impact on our debt situation, especially when we are at 80.1% now? And if Minister can touch more on...
You noticed he talked about liability management as part of it. Okay. So
the impact of the development bank.
TV3, quickly. Guys, we want to make it one each. Let's try and make it easy for everybody.
Right,
Yes,
so beyond investor confidence, I want to find out if it will pave way for Ghana to go to the Eurobond once again, and how soon will that be? And how attractive enough will that be also for the ratings agency, if I should say? And finally, the toll booths. Kojo, are we going to see a restoration?
No. Let's make it simple for everybody.
Being collected.
Restoration of tolls. Let me add that to it. Guys, let's try and make it simple for everybody. Yes, Nana?
Yeah. Honourable Minister, in case you hit a snack, are you going to introduce another tax to replace the yield levy, or you are still going to hang on? And my second question, are we going, do you have possibility going back to IMF for a bailout at this juncture?
So IMF and e-levy. Yes, madam.
Okay, so my question is also on e-levy. I'd like to find out if we are maintaining the 1.75 or there is going to be a reduction.
Thank you. Let me go to the back. Let me go to the back because it's already been mentioned that we're at 1.5 already. So, yeah. Yes, sir. The two of you. Quickly.
Winston from Metro TV. I want to understand, petrol prices have gone up by 50%. As of now, government is proposing 1.6% reduction. What difference will it make? And also, there has been calls by industries for the removal of some taxes on the petroleum price build-up. Are you listening to that, or are you basically going forward with what you just proposed?
Thank you. Yes, sir.
All right. Still on petroleum, it looks like the geopolitical situation we have because of the Russian war also suggests that petroleum or crude oil and crude products from Russia is low. Now, would it be an opportunity for the government to actually maybe instruct BDCs to redirect their attention to purchase petroleum products from Russia?
In the face of the sanctions.
Which is supposed to be low because it's not a total ban.
Yeah, I understand. But in the face of the sanctions.
Sure.
Okay, so then you add that to it, then we examine all of that together. Yeah, let's try and wrap up at the back.
Emmanuel, GH1 TV. Since discussions are already going with two international banks, the question is, are these loans commercial or concessional? And finally, will you touch allowances of government appointees?
What was the last question? Sorry, just one.
Will you touch allowance of appointees?
Yes. Just a follow-up. So what is the total tax government slaps on, in real figures? What's the total tax so that we can know by what percentage of government is reducing?
Total tax government slaps on what?
On petroleum products.
Okay.
The total government tax on petroleum products.
As in like the nominal value?
The nominal value.
Very well. Final one.
Yo, Papa, me didn't depend on that water. United Television. Minister Kasemono or Maeti ghost names be. The person who Sadi and Pententia Atna Honey Nioma Bandia Guaquems will be here for so Sansa Mafui, Ibia San on Samba back. How mano? And now petrol whom commodino. I told the beer, yet it's in the sea, so before a bed do pump Honoma, a bear reflect war, a bimuko to Puma as I say Muno, not a check. See, on my young, oh, may assurance be send PA near Energy Ministry, no more and other stakeholders.
On my date, crowd.
No, me case. Yes, in Penifasi, Yakaka, Madame Pine. Yet you can say, yeah, so a bit tell you a bit one of being effect, no, not a check.
Wama data a bit take effect. Wama data a bit take effect. GNA, we'll give you the final word, GNA.
Thank you. This week, I heard you speaking on radio regarding the cabinet retreat, and you made it clear that 16 government priority programs will be looked at. But the minister only mentioned the free agents, that government will not roll back on that one. What about the 15? What measures are you taking on that? I'm talking about NAPCO, one district, one factory, all those things. What are you doing?
Thank you. And make a, let me make a quick comment on this one. Madam, I'll make an exception for you. Let me make a quick comment on this one. We have been talking about budget cuts, and we have said that all the expenditure lines are fair to examine for possible budget cuts. Doesn't mean you are going to cancel the program or change the program. Budget cuts. The minister has said that the president is committed to ensuring that free SHS continues. I hope you understand that. Now you're asking, will budget cuts affect any of the other 15 programs? That's the question you're asking. Minister will respond to that. Madam in Green will give you the final word.
My name is Naja Bilagwan with GBC. Minister did talk about 10% cut in discretionary expenditure. So I want to find out if the earlier 20% cut in expenditure is going to add to this 10 to make it 30.
Thank you very much. Minister, we are in your hands for final responses. We are done. We are with Minister now.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much for this. You know, George started the question about investor confidence. I mean, let me be very, very clear that if I had followed an NDC programmed economic transformation of this country, we would not be here. It is their duty to state their responses to us, as my honorable colleague is doing. But I think we have all been partners in seeing how the economy ran from 2017 to 2019, and also very clear on the impact of COVID on this economy, and to be able to eke out some growth within that period. The issue, therefore, of investor confidence, if he would take responsibility for our inability, maybe, it's party not to pass our revenue measures in the House, will be a very different discussion that we are on. And I don't want us hiding from that fact, that it led then to what we call the downgrade that we have, closed international capital markets, our inability to go to the market in the first quarter, and still pass an appropriation and say that you can have the revenue that you require. Those are clear responsibilities that we have put, and therefore the Ukraine war has exacerbated that situation. What do you do? So we went out of a 20% cut so that we can shrink our expenses, make sure that we still meet the 7.4% that we promised, looking at what has happened with this war and saying that the global dynamics have even worsened, and what can we do in our own kitchen to make sure that we get into a mind frame of austerity and managing that. And the spirit of our people is strong. We saw that in the growth numbers in 2022, and we've seen what the Bank of Ghana is doing to ensure that this does not trickle over. And let's not despise small beginnings. It's really the spirit of our people that we are comfortable with. We have done it before, and we believe that we will be able to continue to do that. So thank you for that question, whether they call it cosmetics or what. We are dealing with investor confidence also, and really the spirit of our people to say, let's brace ourselves and move forward. And we shall do that. The impact, of course, of the $1 billion affects our debt to GDP ratio, but I don't know what the consequences will be if we do not turn the whole economy into a more positively driven environment of people talking positive in what we do and where we are going to go. And I think we should leave it at that. Negative words do not help the spirit of the country. Let's find a way to realize that we also are at war, and we have some 30 million people to protect. The Development Bank is one of those interventions that the President's administration really believed was necessary for the ecosystem, and therefore between resources of Bank of Ghana, resources that we have, is bringing now an institution which will be able to, on its own, use its balance sheet to bring more resources into the country and support the infrastructure frame of our financial system. So the target was $1 billion. We're already at $800 million mark, and they've started looking at providing credit to institutions already. So it is such thinking that we are going to go through to make sure that areas that will support the real economy have resources for that to be done, especially also including the issue of employment for our youth. And I think really, as a people, we should not allow negative language to stop us and create this, poverty of aspiration with our heads down. We should not be encouraged. If we hit a snag in Parliament, what are we going to do? And there was some subtle suggestion of IMF. I think we've told you that we are not going there. Okay? But we've also told you, Ghanaians, getting that opportunity, nobody should belittle or rubbish that. We should just be praying about bringing better education for them and enabling people to realize their potential. And I think that's important. We should inculcate that and be compassionate about that and know that that is our future. The issue of, we did announce even before this crisis the 20% reduction which we have sent out the various notices for, and we are looking to see how it manifests this quarter. And then saying that, there are going to be a series of meetings between us and the MDAs going forward to look at other discretionary line items and therefore determine whether maybe there's a little bit more squeeze that we can, but always keeping our eye on the ball at the 7.8%, 7.4%, we'll be able to meet that, to bring that confidence that we are serious about that going forward. So that gives us extra flexibility to look at that. But it's essentially, ladies and gentlemen, a government that is resolved, that given what we had of COVID, given this war in Ukraine and the global changes within us, our elements either be more efficient to be resolved at this war that we have upon us, and that we can do it because we have done it before. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, for your time and for responding to the issues that have been raised here this afternoon. Copies of the Minister's statement are being made available to you in soft copy so that you can also do the subsequent analysis with your various panels. But I want to thank you that you've made time to be with us and that you've helped us to reach the country through your various platforms. We will also make available from the PR department of this ministry a number of persons who will be available to provide further responses to questions that you may have. So Cecilia will help you with that when we are done. We're very grateful to you. Wish you all the best.
Thank you very much.
The challenges facing the Ghanaian economy. Prior this address, we've heard a lot of cuts in salaries, in allowances, among others, and government is expecting, as we heard from the minister, to save some 3.5 billion Ghana cedis from this. This is huge, and we is going to materialize as planned. We've seen government also placing moratorium on travels and conferences to make some fiscal space in terms of helping to address the issue. And also on the fuel prices, we've had some adjustments, contrary to what we had ahead of the meeting, that there's going to be some huge cuts. But government says some of the tax build-up, some of the taxes in the price build-up have been reviewed, and is going to offer some more than 1% relief, at least in the immediate term. And as they take some of the measures to ease the pressure on the economy, also they are hopeful that the cedi depreciation will be contained and will certainly provide some relief to Ghanaians as well. I pose a question on the Tema refinery, where, of course, the energy analysts have called on governments to ensure that we begin to refine our product locally, and even the products that BDCs import, we can refine for the state to have some money. And the finance minister has given an indication that the new management is looking for some opportunities to expand the capacity of the refinery so that this could be achieved. We have the deputy minister here, the Honorable Abinansari, to pick a word or two. The state media wants to take a word or two from the Honorable Deputy Minister for Finance, the Honorable Abina. I'll say thank you so much, Madam, for your time on GBC. It's an ambush, but it's normal if you can turn slowly for me on the camera. Really, we've had a lot of measures into the economy. For example, let's start with the fuel prices. Many had expected some significant cuts in the taxes in the price build-up, and that's hasn't happened. In some 1.4 now. Is that enough?
Okay, let me give you the context in which we had this press conference today. We mentioned that right from when we took the budget to Parliament for Parliament to approve the budget, significant changes have been made globally and domestically, and that has affected what the budgets that Parliament approved for us. So this afternoon, we are telling Ghanaians how we are going to make sure that we put in place, one, to achieve the targets that we set for ourselves in the 2022 budget, especially with a deficit of 7.4% of GDP. In doing that, we have mentioned that there are two major effects that has resulted in currently where we find ourselves. One has to do with the COVID, and then the other one has to do with the Ukraine war. That has affected fuel prices, affected food prices, and has resulted in increasing cost of fuel, and also affected the standard of living of not just Ghanaians, but globally across the world. It's affected inflation and a whole lot of macroeconomic targets. So here in Ghana, government seeks to put measures in place, one, to help us raise the needed revenue that we need, and also check our expenditure so that at the end of it all, we will be able to consolidate at the 7.4 budget deficit. And in doing that, government also heard the worries and the concerns of Ghanaians in respect of the exchange depreciation, as well as the fuel prices. A series of meetings have gone on, especially on the fuel prices. But one thing that government believes that if it should support the bank will go a lot is the regular flow of foreign fuel. And so let me tell you that the fuel price build-up does not include only taxes. You have the taxes, and then you have the margins by yes. So on government's part, government held meetings with the NPA, the BDCs, the OMCs, COPEC, and the other stakeholders. And for now, government has assured the BDCs that it is going to make sure they get some constant supply of dollars, and that will bring the speculation down and also help in our cedi dollar situation, and also make forex available for our people, our BDCs, OMCs, to be able to buy this. This will go a long way to reduce the speculation and also reduce the rate at which they buy the dollars. And in fact, it will also reduce the price of the fuel they buy. And then government, in addition to that, has also reduced the fuel prices by 15 pesos. Calling BDCs, those who have margins in the fuel price buildup, to also, in the spirit of burden sharing, to also follow suit. The some regular flow of forex, which I know Bank of Ghana is working with them to do that. Once that is done, it will go a long way to also assist us in the whole fuel price increase. But for now, this is what government can do. Looking at the expenditure that government has committed to and the revenues that we are raising now, this is what government can do comfortably to make sure that we still stay within the target of 7.4% of our deficit.
So the minister has been okay. The minister has been. I wanted to ask a question about the $2 billion that government is expecting to raise on the capital markets. What will be the impact on the debt situation, which has already crossed 80.1%? I asked the minister. He said, indeed, it's going to add up to the debt stock, but it is a necessary bill that we have to take. And I wanted to know when we will have the access again to the capital market. We are negotiating with 3 international banks for this syndicated raise the 2 billion. That will certainly engender confidence if it happens in the Ghanaian economy and possibly open up the capital markets. I tried getting details on that, but that has not been successful. So this has been our special coverage of the press briefing by Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta as he outlines measures to revive the Ghanaian economy. COVID-19, from the storms of the Russian invasion of Ukraine and the many preceding challenges even before. My name is Sani Abdurrahman. Do stay with us. We'll continue analyzing what the minister has said. Do enjoy the rest of our programs.